Is Superman outdated? Is his supporting world outdated? Is the Daily Planet an outdated format? As a Superman fan, I should vehemently deny these claims that Superman and his world is outdated, that the format is totally outdated. In the past, I have absolutely vehemently denied that Superman isn't relevant. But today I give you the devastating truth as I think about it in a cold-hearted way. I love Superman, I love his movies, even the bad ones. I think he's a great character. I'm grateful that I grew up with him. I love Smallville. In fact, I believe that Superman the movie and Smallville were the most relevant live-action adaptations of Superman, and they're the ones that really truly captured the imagination. It doesn't mean I don't like the other ones. But the truth is, yes, Superman isn't as relatable as he once was. He's relatable to me and to you, the Superman fans, but to this young TikTok generation, he certainly isn't relatable. If you're asking, this latest generation to be invested in in 2 or 3 people, in Clark Kent, Perry White, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, working in the bullpen, working in the Daily Planet, I don't think that's going to be very relatable and relevant to a modern generation, and that is a huge, huge problem. Because the background where Superman is based is very, very old-fashioned, and he only works in a modern-day movie. For example, this brand new Superman movie that James Gunn's writing and directing, Superman Legacy. Superman Legacy, for me, only works with that format if it's a period piece. If it's a period piece, it could work. The problem is, even if it's a period piece, can we see the general audience being interested in that? It's very, very unlikely. So for me, I think when I look at what Zack Snyder, Chris Nolan and David Goyer did with Man of Steel, and then what Snyder did with BVS, it's very, very interesting, because they brought Superman kicking and screaming in the modern world. And a lot of people rejected that, but I think more people probably embraced the new way of doing Superman with Man of Steel than maybe will embrace Superman Legacy, sticking to the old-fashioned kind of concepts and backgrounds and settings that Superman's always been in. Let's look at Man of Steel. There's a very understated character in Man of Steel that shows you the modernization of Zack Snyder, David Goyer and Chris Nolan and what they did. And his name is Woodburn. Woodburn is a blogger that Lois Lane despises and Perry White also despises. He's an internet blogger who talks about news, breaks news stories, and he even goes on television and gets interviewed. People like that are the modern face of journalism, using the terms journalism loosely, but they're the kind of people who break the news today. So what did that mean by having Woodburn in Man of Steel? What Man of Steel does, instead of, having the film dominated by the Daily Planet and having Clark, Lois, and even a Jimmy Olsen working in there with Perry for the, predominant feature, they take Superman and Lois outside of the Daily Planet, and we even see Lois get involved with Superman's first mission. Instead of having Lois and Clark stuck in the Daily Planet, the Daily Planet is relevant. It's there. We see Perry there. We see, Perry and Lois, heatedly debating whether they should post a story about Superman. But it isn't like Superman the movie, where we see Clark and Lois kind of flirting and being awkward together in the Daily Planet and them being journalists. And we see a little bit more of that in BVS, where we see Clark being a journalist in the Daily Planet, we see Lois at the Daily Planet, we see Perry. But it still doesn't dominate the movie. So what the Snyderverse does with Man of Steel and BVS, it says, that's not how newspapers are done anymore, And no one's going to sit there watching a movie with the two main characters mostly in the Daily Planet in the old-fashioned type bullpen. You know, those old type of movies worked. It works in Superman the movie. And this is why I'm saying that this kind of Superman is set in the past. And it's going to be very, very difficult to get a general audience to embrace a Superman and Lois Lane that work mostly at the Daily Planet, but, you know, spend most of their time at the Daily Planet. And I do think that Man of Steel, especially Man of Steel, got it right, where we're not in the Daily Planet. The Daily Planet isn't the dominating factor of Man of Steel. That's not where the romance and relationship is developed between Superman, Lois, and Clark, which is very, very interesting. And nobody's really spoken about that element of Man of Steel before. I think that is very, very interesting. As I say, a character like Woodburn shows you the modernization of journalism and that the old bullpen is a thing of the past, and I just don't think is very interesting for Superman Legacy to spend most of its time in the Daily Planet. Now, maybe James Gunn can do it in a way that's relevant and, you know, relatable, but it's going to be very, very difficult. So what I'm saying is the setting of Superman is very, very old-fashioned. And how deeply do you change Superman? We know kind of there's a lot of fans that don't want these comic book characters re-modernized. They want them to be what they always were. But ultimately, in terms of making that huge box office, it isn't really about comic book fans. I'm sorry, it's not. It's about a new, younger, general audience and attracting them to cinemas. We've seen that Barbie and Oppenheimer, the Barbieheimer thing, has really brought audiences back to cinema, because Barbie and Oppenheimer are two very different films. Those films have recaptured the cinematic imagination because there's variety between them. They're not both the same. They're not two superhero movies, CBMs, competing for your attention. They're two very different movies. That's why people are happy to go and see Barbie and then go and see Oppenheimer. It's something that cinema has lacked for a long time. And so I believe it's a very difficult situation to rejuvenate Superman, but I certainly think that Goya, Snyder, and Nolan did the right thing with Man of Steel by taking it out of the Daily Planet, having the Daily Planet there, remodernizing the Daily Planet, showing a character like Woodburn, the modern face of journalism, but not making that the most important facet of the movie. Clark doesn't even get his job, iconic job at the Daily Planet, to the end of the movie. And this is very, very similar to what Matt Reeves does with the Batman. As in Man of Steel, Clark is mostly in his Superman costume. It's like the Batman. Robert Pattinson is mostly dressed up as Batman in the Batman. And I think it works, because what happens is with Man of Steel and the Batman, it gets straight to the point. I think most people would rather see, Clark dressed as Superman and doing his thing more than being Clark. We love Clark. Clark's very, very relatable. And if you get that balance right, maybe that is the key to making him relatable as well, having him Clark as much as Superman. I don't know about that, and I'm not sure how James Gunn will go at that and approach that. But there's lots of different ways how you can make it relatable. So it's true, Man of Steel and especially BVS were divisive movies, but they did attempt to re-modernize Superman because they understood you need more pacing. Modern audiences love pacing, faster pacing. They're not really interested in lots and lots of dialogue, which is a shame, but it's only what they've been bred on in the past 20 years. It's not really modern audiences' fault, and you need a Superman film that has pace, and spending more and more time at the Daily Planet will become very problematic for Superman Legacy or any Superman series or anything live action in Superman. If you notice another modern retelling of Superman, Superman and Lois, they took Clark and Lois out of the Daily Planet instantaneously. Why? Because they know that is going to bore modern audiences. You're going to suck in the fans that love Superman. That isn't the issue. The true issue is here that having them constantly at the Daily Planet slows down the pacing. So what they did, they take them back to Smallville. You know, they've got two sons. We meet, you know, Lana Lang's daughter. You know, Clark's got two sons, as I say. One of them has powers, one of them hasn't. We see their issues. We see Superman's challenges of being Superman and a father in a modern world, but going back home to Smallville. And I think, you know, as I say, I think Todd Hell, being the showrunner and one of the developers of Superman and Lois, made the right decision. So Snyder tried to take Clark and Lois outside of the Daily Planet mostly, and Superman and Lois did the same. So it shows to you what I'm saying is true. That the Daily Planet, the old-fashioned bullpen setting for Clark and Lois's relationship, dynamic, romance, isn't going to work for a modern audience. And I think it is a very interesting situation. It is very interesting what James Gunn does about this and how he does it. Now, he has got the writing prowess to make, you know, the old Daily Planet setting in the bullpen interesting and have a lot of banter. I know that. And Superman fans will be very, very tough on anyone who takes Superman and Lois, Clark and Lois, outside of the bullpen. But I don't think that Snyder, Goyer, and Nolan got criticised for not focusing too much on the Daily Planet. That really wasn't people's issues. And I think the fact that Clark starts his new job at the Daily Planet, his iconic job at the Daily Planet, at the end of the movie, Lois says, "Welcome to the planet." He smiles with that beautiful Henry Cavill smile. I think that works for the movie, and I think that works for everyone. That was never a complaint. That was never an issue. So I do think that Man of Steel and Superman and Lois did the right thing by not having their stories dominated at the Daily Planet. Because the face of journalism has changed. Because I think when Superman was invented, when Siegel and Schuster created Superman, you know, the old-fashioned bullpen was a very glamorous place, you know, the place where stories are written. And, you know, you're talking about pre-World War II when Superman was created by Siegel and Schuster as well. So it's a very, very long time ago. And I think it's very interesting when you look at the other superhero characters. Spider-Man's a photographer, but photos today are pretty cool. Everyone's taking photos on their phones and stuff and trying to catch things happening and posting them on social media. So that kind of works for Peter Parker. And I think when I look at all the, like Batman, you know, he's a rich dude, you know, that doesn't date, does it? He doesn't really need to have a job, but he runs, you know, Wayne Enterprises. So when you look at the other, you know, superheroes, they're not as dated as Superman is. And as I say, him being a journalist does date him out. But the whole idea of Superman is quite dated as well. And I think he does need remodernization. I think that James Gunn does need to change elements of the character and his settings, especially the Daily Planet, because as I say, I don't think audiences are going to be that motivated about seeing people working in a newspaper. And as I say, it will be a very interesting kind of creative conceit what James Gunn does about that, because Superman does need major surgery. You know, it's no accident that Man of Steel made $650, that Superman Returns only made $350 million, you know, at the global box office as well. And as superhero movies die out in popularity, it's going to be really, really difficult for them to, you know, to remain the trend, because they're not the trend anymore. And I think Barbie, for sure, has changed everything. And I think the Mattel Cinematic Universe, as I discussed the other day is coming. They're looking to develop, not just Barbie, not just the Barbie characters, but all the other toys that they've developed in the past. It's a very, very interesting situation. The question is, can those other things and those other toys be as relatable as Barbie's? Because Barbie's always been very, very popular. We'll see what they can do with that. But what it is with the Mattel Cinematic Universe is something fresh. It's something new. And to have Barbie in cinemas at the same time as Oppenheimer, something, totally north, totally different, is what's really capturing imagination. As I say, I think if it was two superhero movies against each other, I've just seen a superhero movie. Do I really want to see another one? They just went full on the CBMs, and I think I never thought I'd be tired of superhero movies, but I think we're all tired, and I think they do need a break. And I spoke about this the other day. I would reduce the output of DC content which James Gunn claims he's going to do. I think when we come back from these strikes, the SAG-AFTRA strike, the Writers Guild of America strikes, I think Hollywood will be a very, very different place. Different people will be working there. Different people will be running these companies, and there will be a different mentality. There will be a need for a reset in mentality from Hollywood, because Hollywood has never ever been so low. It's very interesting how Hollywood are in financial meltdown. Everyone's attacking each other. But if you look at what's in cinemas right now in Barbie and Oppenheimer, for the first time in many, many years, they seem to have the right balance in their films. And that's very, very interesting that this has happened while the whole industry in Tinseltown is in meltdown. But yes, I believe Superman needs major surgery. And if I was making a Superman film, I'd really, really look deeply at that character and how that works. Because I think we know that people from my generation, and maybe your generation, whoever you are, whoever's watching this video, finds Superman relatable. And that's great. But how do you make Superman relatable for a modern young audience? Kids are not coming to cinemas anymore, but they've been going in their droves to watch Barbie. When I mean kids, I mean teenagers. It's a trend to see Barbie, then Oppenheimer. Perfect cross-studio marketing. It's worked. It's huge. The youngsters are back in cinemas, and this is something, if you love movies, if you care about art, this should make you very excited. It makes me excited, even though I have no intention of watching Barbie. And that's okay. I don't have to be here bitching about it. I don't want to spoil your enjoyment of a great historic moment in cinema. And what I can say is more gay men and more gay women have gone to see Barbie than went to see Bros. And that goes to tell you a lot, because the gay community have always loved Barbie. So it's a great celebration, not just for the LGBTQ community, but everyone. Everyone who wants to have a good time in the cinema. We know the commentary is a bit toxic, but at the end of the day, if you're enjoying that movie, and the movie's making a hell of a lot of money, so I've got to put my hands up and say, I was wrong about the whole thing, that it wasn't a dumb idea to make a Barbie movie. And hey, this is the new normal. This is where we are today. And thankfully, I have a great collection of TV shows and movies from the past that I can enjoy as well. So, that makes me happy, and I'm happy that you're happy. So everyone's happy. This is not going to be a channel that's here to trigger you. I'm bored of the culture war. I'm bored of talking about wokeness, if it exists, if it doesn't exist, if it's just something that people are saying when they don't like something. I'm bored. It's time to reinvigorate the entertainment industry, and Oppenheimer and Barbieheimer have certainly reinvigorated this industry, and anything that does that, and I mean anything, is a good thing. But it really is the end of the superhero trend. But if they want Superman legacy to be successful, they have to understand that this character needs open heart surgery. I don't think the character, himself, aka Superman, is the problem. As I said earlier, it's his surroundings. That's where the real issues are. That's where the open heart surgery is. What do you do with him? Where is he? I think that Man of Steel had the right idea to keep him mostly as Superman, but we do see him as Clark. We do see him interacting with Lois as Clark, with Martha, that great, brilliant relationship with Diane Lane's Martha Kent, the best Martha Kent, if you ask me. So he is Clark in the movie, but he's Superman more, and it's the perfect balance. I think it works, and the remodernization of the Daily Planet, and and look at modern day journalism in Man of Steel, I also think works really well. And they do need to do that. But I don't think you can have, the major setting at the Daily Planet. The journalism can't be the main thing. And there's only one way that can happen. As I said earlier as well, if James Gunn can have some banter and some fast conversations between Clark, Lois, Jimmy and Perry, then maybe something interesting could happen there and it could still work. But I think, as I keep on saying, it's a concept that's stuck in time. And it's not a foregone conclusion that people are going to come in for Superman Legacy and be, find it relatable and find Superman relatable. I've said this many times. It's all about the execution. And, Donna got Superman the movie right for that time. And James Gunn has to get Superman Legacy right for this time. I think it's right that instead of just making a Superman movie, we have the huge world building that James Gunn is planning for Superman Legacy. That's a good thing. We see Superman's world, we see this new DC universe. I think that's exciting. And people's criticism of this, that it's not going to be a Superman movie and it's going to be, they're going to have other characters and things like that and oversaturate it, and then have Snyder fans say, try and defend, oh yeah, what about when BVS had all those cameos and people said it was overstuffed? I never thought it was overstuffed because the introduction of Aquaman, and the Flash particularly, they were just like cameos via a CCTV thing, weren't they? So it wasn't oversaturation for me. Maybe was it right to introduce them that way? Did it work to introduce them that way? I think it was an okay idea, and I don't think it was part of BVS's problems. But not everyone liked that element of it. But Zack had to do it somehow. Because the plans changed, because we got BVS instead of Man of Steel 2, this, Zack was affected by the mentality of the studio as well. So when Zack is criticised, it's very interesting to me because the studio were making changes and putting pressure on him. So if you want to blame anyone, blame the studio. You can blame Zack for certain creative decisions, but you can't blame him for the pressure they put on him because they wanted a franchise and they wanted a successful franchise. And really, ultimately, everyone just went down a direction that was never going to pull in the general audience, and that's very sad. And now we have DCEU movies not making money. And the real question is, will the DCU make money as CBMs go out of fashion? And Barbie has affected this because now Barbie is the fashion. A very different movie, nothing to do with superheroes, and it's making money. Could be $1 billion, who knows? Could be even better than that. Let's see what this weekend, what the box office this weekend says for Barbie. Will the drop be small? What will Oppenheimer do as well? So I think what Barbie tells us is, the superhero genre in cinemas is not over, but the oversaturation is done. And just quickly, what does this do for Marvel Studios? A once successful franchise and studio that has a genre that not many people are interested anymore. A genre that's becoming more and more redundant every day. And I think that this is very interesting because James Gunn has got something new to say. He's got a different way of doing CBMs in this CBM franchise. But when you look at Marvel, they have got their plans. They've announced their slate. But the evidence is that this once, iconic, popular, trending franchise isn't those things anymore. What you do is something that can't make the money it once did. It's like ordering too many Coca-Colas or bottles of milk. If you keep too much milk for too long, it goes out of date. And this is the problem Disney have. The Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't the most important, most popular thing in entertainment anymore. It's what happened to the Beatles. It's what happens to popular things all the time. They had their time. Now, what happened with Phase 4 didn't help. I believe if Feige went on the kind of, if he stuck to the formula he had in phases, at least phases 1 and 2, even like most of phase 3, I think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe would still be trending today. But he made certain decisions. Disney decided to go down this, genderized political direction, if you like, and it was too blatant. It hit people over the head with a hammer, and people didn't like it, and now they're not making money. And now there's not that excitement for the MCU. And what you do with that? What you do with a franchise where you're paying people to make something that doesn't sell anymore. There was a time that Feige could put anything on the screen, any old shit on the screen, and everyone would be there and everyone would be excited. That isn't the case anymore. Disney with the MCU have a huger problem than WB have with the DCU, because the DCU is something fresh, new, and we have new leadership with new ideas. That's one thing I would say. But taking it right back to Superman and his relevance, and this is a discussion we've been having about Superman for a very long time. It's something I've been in denial about for a very long time. It doesn't change my feelings for Superman. I always love him. Superman will always be relevant to me. I'm quite happy to see him and Lois in the Daily Planet. But it's not just about me, and it's not just about you, because I'm 50 years old. I am a dying breed. They don't care if I watch movies or I don't watch movies. They don't care if you watch movies or don't watch movies, but they need the next generation of fans to come into cinemas, buy the merch, and be excited on social media. But they have driven young people out of cinemas and onto TikTok. And now they have to find a way to bring them off of TikTok, or maybe involve the TikTok generation via some viral marketing on TikTok and places like that. And I think that's the way I would do it. Not that these studios are very modernly run. I think the problem is there's too many old men running studios. It's true. It's not me trying to inflame a situation. There are too many old men running studios today. There's too many people with some weird marketing ideas. But I think with Superman Legacy, if you harness TikTok in the marketing and you can suck, that generation into watching a Superman movie, because I think it's very interesting. Look what they did with Barbie. Everyone is fucking obsessed with Barbie. Whether I like that or not, it's true. Everyone is damn obsessed with Barbie. It's making money because most of the money went on the marketing. It worked because everyone's watching it. Men, women, trans people, everyone in the world is interested in watching Barbie. The movie is a trend via its marketing. Superman Legacy and the Batman 2 come out in the same year. A Superman and Batman movie. They have to use that to their advantage, just like Universal and WB did with Barbieheimer, with Oppenheimer and Barbie. The kind of new age marketing with Barbie and Oppenheimer has been magic. And it's brought new types of people into cinema, and it's reinvigorated cinema again. And WB have to look at this in terms of Superman Legacy and the Batman 2. Because I think this is the future. Because I never foresaw this. I never saw people going back to cinemas to watch Barbie and Oppenheimer. Who would have seen a cross-studio marketing plan between Barbie and a Christopher Nolan film called Oppenheimer? It's been very clever. It's been very smart. We've been talking about bad marketing with DC content and lots of different content, and I think that's been the problem. But clearly someone out there, maybe there's a new person, maybe in charge at Universal or WB, and said, why don't we cross-market Barbie and Oppenheimer? And oh boy, hasn't it worked?